Jai Hind to everybody. Today we are coming to you with experts who have spent a lifetime in trying to build India, who are actually doing it now also. They are all members of our group, MRO Digest Forums. And yesterday in our forum, there was a discussion which was there, wherein very wise, very good points emerged. So we thought, why not we should discuss this amongst ourselves and put it up for the others who may be interested to also listen. I retired as a Lieutenant General from the Indian Army. I come from the Corps of Electronics and Mechanical Engineers, and my specialization is mechanical engineering with military vehicle technology as my core subject. In the past, I had worked on an innovative project, the repowering of the Vijay as a young man. So I've seen how we can do a lot, and sometimes we surprise ourselves. So generally, we will be talking about the various aspects of Make in India today, and how those of us who are, like most of us, are from the MRO side of the industry. So how MRO can help, and generally speaking, from our knowledge, what we can do. So with that, I would hand you over to our panelists, whom I will request to introduce themselves as they come on. Some initial thoughts from you, Mr. Pradeep, please.
Good evening, my colleagues in this panel and the viewers also. I am Pradeep Gupta. Just now I am running a think tank known as Security and Policy Initiatives that is working in absorption of defense transfer technology, improving border management, and a few more topics. It's a very small initial stages. It's a startup think tank. Besides, I am heading an AI startup also, AI.ai Private Limited. And before this, I was with the Government of India, and I was the Joint Secretary, MHA, as well as OSD indigenization in the Ministry of Defense, headed the indigenization at the ministry level. Then I was PS2 President also, and also PS2 Defense Minister long ago. So this is my exposure. Besides that, I have been working in the OFB, wherein I have played instrumental role in indigenizing the 155mm shell way back in 98-99, for which I was awarded the prestigious Santu Sahni Award, and which is the Best Production Manager Award for contributing to this indigenization. And those memories are very clear in my mind still, that what are the problems, issues, and we had done a lot of work on our own in that setup. So this is my brief introduction. Besides that, I have also dealt with the OFB defense exports also, while I was senior regional director as the marketing in Delhi. So I have some exposure for the defense exports too. This using the line of credit, though nothing much has happened since 2018-19. But line of credit, I had discussed the issue with the then Secretary Economic Relations in MEA. And he was kind enough to consider the defense items also in the development partnership assistance. So that was the beginning, and it was in late 2018 and early 2019 when this item happened, and within 3-4 months a formal note was initiated, and there are issues about defense exports still under the line of credit I'm mentioning. So things are in it's basically work in progress. So this is my brief introduction. Regarding the Make in India, what you have told, we have to very clearly understand that what does Make in India mean. A lot of things are happening in Make in India in this country. And it had been happening for several decades also in the past. You see the auto sector revolution, which is nearest to the defense sector. And way back in 80s, the Maruti got tie up with the Japanese companies, and then they brought the technology, they started manufacturing, but still certain things were being made outside. Over the 3-4 decades journey of Maruti, they have internalized certain things, but nevertheless still there is dependence on the Suzuki company because of their internal control over the Maruti Suzuki. So this is where the actual Make in India is happening in auto sector, in other vehicles also. We are establishing manufacturing lines. Basically, it is a production line, but the Make in India, if I have to decide a definition, for me is that when the entire product is conceptualized by us, then developed by us, and conceptualized, designed, and developed by us, and then after due trials, etc., it is accepted, and then bulk production starts. So right from the generation of idea till the mass production, the entire journey has to be covered here. Then you will have full control. What you have rightly mentioned, that if I make a product, we must have comprehensive manufacturing system. Means it right from conceptualization of the idea of that technology till the bulk production. If we have that thing, then the integration will take place, because the designers of the system will know where to source the item from which place in the world. Say you want to have 10 components in that, and say only 2 or 3 or 4 are made in India, rest have to be imported. No issues. But the designer knows everything, that if I change this system with this subsystem with this subsystem, what will be the impact? And he will have control over the what we call HSP, and then appropriate modification will happen. Say this engine is now no longer serving our purpose, so we change it by this. But presently we buy the system from outside, say from Russia, from America. We are not able to change things on our own, because the agencies who are assuring the quality, they are also not very confident whether the change will say the Rafale aircraft has Safran engine and I want to change it with the Rolls-Royce engine on our own. It cannot be done. It is impossible for our designers to do it. So that's where the bottleneck or constraint comes. And this is for the Make in India overall comprehensive concept of the project. Another is when you get the product like ready-made weapons from abroad. A lot of weapons are being imported. The indigenizing industry, the MSME or even the beer industry, they are completely clueless what are the how the design has been done, how the material has been produced. So there the real struggle starts. Mostly MSME start the task of indigenizing, but then on their way to the end step, they quit because of various problems, because they are not able to indigenize. Sometimes technical difficulties come, sometimes the quality assurance thing doesn't happen. I've come across several MSMEs because in my avatar as OSD indigenization, I had traveled across India, right from Belgaum to Kanpur to Aligarh and other places too, and have met the MSMEs. They have real problem, not only about the orders, but then technically producing, food product is also a big struggle for them. For indigenizing any component for which there are no drawings available, no data is available, and that's what the struggle of the indigenizing MSME in India. Yes, the products which DRDO has designed, no issues. DRDO gives the drawing or anybody else has the design drawing, it happens. But another issue which we have seen, that whatever TOTs we have got from abroad, TOT is very, very loosely used terminology in this country. If I presume, I mean that TOT means everything, concept from the drawing board till and everything is given to you. But then we land with the license production only. And we are very happy that the license production is happening. The line is producing 100 tanks, 200 tanks, 50 tanks every year or whatever it is. And we are happy. But then if certain changes are to be done, we are not able to do on our own. And those changes are very time-taking. So that's the real struggle, what I see. So just now what I have stated is just a bird eye view, but then there are, in the course of discussion, I'll come up with the more, and I request my other colleagues to also give their views on this panel. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your initial thoughts there. A lot of ground you covered. May I now request Brigadier Vijay to please introduce himself and also give his initial thoughts.
Jai Hind to all of you. So I am Brigadier Vijay. I was commissioned into the Corps of Electronics and Mechanical Engineers in 1982. I'm an MTech in computer science from IIT Madras. And my 30 years in the army was largely spent in various MRO formations of the army. In my second last tenure in the army, I was the managing director of an army base workshop located in Bangalore, which is the only base workshop involved in India whose job is to manufacture spares. As it was being bought out, India has depended a lot on the Soviet Union for a large part of its defense procurement. And we also had got into a big deal on the Bofors gun. But due to various issues like the collapse of the Soviet Union, the Bofors case we all know, we were having a lot of problems with the spares required to sustain this, the Soviet equipment, the vintage Soviet equipment, as well as the Bofors. And 515 Army Base Workshop was designed for sustaining our MRO effort in the terms of manufacturing small spares for the MRO industry. So we had a very strong methodization center where we used to study the functional design of parts. We used to study the material involved. We used to study the dimensional aspects of it, manufacture prototypes, put it through the entire trial testing process before inducting it to the ordnance depots and to the MRO organizations in the army. So that's one invaluable expertise I had. And in my view, Make in India we should not be too rigid. Even if we are integrating, say there's a particular equipment to be made and we have integrated that equipment and manufactured it with say 75% imported items initially and 25% Indian, it's okay. It's a start. And slowly the amount of import or items in it can be reduced and indigenized items can be added to it. My next exposure, of course, came in industry. I was in the MRO industry for two very large companies. One is Enercon GmbH, whose Indian arm was Enercon India. And it is here where I had a great exposure to indigenization because Enercon India and Enercon GmbH got into a tussle of intellectual property. And the transfer of technology was stopped between the German company and the Indian company. And we had to sustain this huge amount of turbines. We had 5,000 odd turbines across India, almost 4 gigawatts of wind turbines. So we had to go in for a lot of indigenization, exploring the markets of Europe, exploring the markets in China to sustain our fleet. And we had to do a lot of work on this. My next exposure was in Suzlon. And when I joined Suzlon in 2016, by then the government had, the thrust from the government came up for Make in India. And so as a part of Suzlon being an indigenous India company with R&D abroad and deployed in 17 countries, including India, we had a lot of people who were tasked. We had a core group tasked to take maximum financial advantage of the various schemes. Under the schemes of some policies are announced under the Atmanirbhar scheme, under some policies which are there under Make in India scheme, and towards the end under a lot of incentives offered from the PLI scheme, production linked incentives. And in renewable energy, the government was giving a major thrust with policies in all these three: Atmanirbharta, Make in India, as well as the production linked incentives. So we had invaluable exposure there and we were able to indigenize most of the turbine. And we had almost 9,000 turbines, 13 gigawatts in India. And we achieved almost 75 to 80% indigenization of the equipment used in our turbines. The rest we can add as we continue, but this is a short introduction of my background and exposure to Make in India and Atmanirbharta. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Brigadier Vijay. Very kind of you to have given that initial very broad, multiple input. May I now request Air Commodore Murali to just give his initial thoughts on what we had a discussion in our group and what do you think about Make in India?
Okay. Good evening to all of you, and I'm Air Commodore DB Murali. I retired in 2021 after 35 years of service as AOC Air Force Station Kanpur, which had two MROs. One is the airframe MRO, that is for the AIM-32, and the engine MRO, that is for the Mirage engines as well as the Kiran, and also the R29, the MiG-27, which wind up. And I converted the base to set up the MRO for the LCA engine, that is the F404 engine. And I was instrumental in with a great team I had in inducting the Hawks, the LCA, the reliability enhancement programs at Koraput. When I was there, I was one of the rare officers who has stayed for 5 years in Koraput. And I have nearly around 12 to 15 years in touch with HAL on various projects of MiG-27, LCA, and the Sukhois. So my further experience has been basically I have flown the IL-76 as a flight engineer, and so I had some flying experience quite a bit on that. And also I had worked in the helicopters for some time. So it was a sort of a complete picture I had, and I also had the opportunity to work in a first line servicing, that's from the base servicing to fourth line servicing, the depot level service in continuous tenures, which actually opened my eyes up, because generally people don't get this kind of privilege to work in first to fourth line in one go. So over 10 years, I got an exposure on an aircraft from the from filling the fuel till opening up and stripping it up and doing the overall. So that gave me a very good picture of it, and I'm very fortunate I'm fortunate and thankful to Air Force for giving such a career option for me. And finally, I was involved with the MSRD. I was involved with the NIL for a landing gear upgrade program and HL. So this is where I stand. I will not like to further talk about myself because now anyway I'm retired. But I was sitting idle in Bangalore because I was not wanting to. But then great of my services telling me to come out and work, and then I got an opportunity in GMR. They were happy with doing the C checks and painting of commercial airlines, and but then when I came in, the defense MRO was a vision by Mr. Granthi Mallikarjuna Rao, and he said, let us start with the defense MRO, how to support the armed forces. And that is where I started coming, and I thought the limited numbers of aircraft which are getting inducted into the Indian Air Force need support, great support, because there can't be cost-benefit analysis doesn't sit well to handle for them to be handled by HAL or any PSU, because the amount of interest. So let us see where the common platforms are set up, and the common platforms for Boeing, Airbus, and type of platform which are now coming in are with the civil MROs. So that is where I thought I have an opportunity now. Let me unsettle from Bangalore and came to Hyderabad, and now I'm working here. And when I worked here, I have given a lot of proposals to the armed forces. They're considering it. It takes its time because it has to be a lot of issues has to be resolved. I'm also looking at the OEM nomination route for GMR because we have a very big aerospace park here to set up all aerospace industries, and we have a 24/7 runway, and also a very big MRO, the largest MRO in country MRO, airframe MRO in the country. And so I thought this platform I should utilize to help the services back in whatever I can do. And so I bid for supporting the Boeing platforms and the Lockheed Martin platforms which are coming to the Air Force, including helicopters and fixed wing aircraft. So that is where I am now trying to push it. And while I was doing that, I got a very big opportunity to get into DRDO one project, wherein I'm first time trying to push the consortium sort of, that is consortium in the sense of, if you remember, if you all know that Embraer platform had come in with the EW for AEWC for the airborne warning systems. So now the range was endurance was not sufficient enough. So they changed it to Airbus 321, and Air India could spare some 321s for Air Force. And now the project has come to DRDO, where Airbus 321 has to be mounted with the same EW platforms, and we had to make our own indigenous airborne warning systems. So I told GMR that let us do it, but I said, sir, don't jump into it yourself because you don't have the core expertise, you don't have the domain expertise, you don't have the skill sets. Let us join hands and make a consortium. And I'm very happy to say here that L&T Defense we could speak and I could convince them, and they came forward as a lead integrator. We said, we will look after the Airbus 321 platform. You look after the EW systems in there, on board the aircraft and the workstations and the integration part. All the job on the aircraft we will do, including testing, flying, everything. And workstation structural changes, you want additional fuel tanks, everything will do. And DRDO will be now getting into some technology partners. They will be doing a RFP bid, and some technology partners who are making these EW components will be also coming in. So here is a beautiful consortium wherein an airframe MRO playing within his domain expertise of aircraft platform, a firm which is experienced with Army as well as Navy on making electronic warfare components and integration, and technology partners like Alpha Designs and Astro Microwave, all these people who are available to make the part, joining together as a consortium, and we are now given the willingness to DRDO to bid for this project, which became a big challenge to the PSUs, that is the HAL and the BEL, who are joined hands, who had made the Emperor very well, but there are some issues which now another opportunity and competition is coming to PSU from a private firm, saying that now we are also there. So now the qualitatively they had to improve. Lifetime sustenance will improve. So this is where I think I thought this insight I will give as an introductory thing, so that this is the type of thing which I am looking at, how to build a consortium of private players wherein PSUs also can. Now here PSUs are not out. DRDO organization is going to support this private consortium. So there is a lot of synergy coming in. Now when it comes to Make in India, I only have just take 2 minutes more. I have only one thing to say. One is the sustenance engineering, that is modifications, upgrades, end life extensions, and all those things. Second is Make in India, wherein you make a new aircraft, new system, new weapon, whatever you want to make. Both are two different scenarios. One is legacy. You have to understand the system, the technology, how to upgrade, is it upgradable, and what. And we should only take what can be chewed, because otherwise we will burn our fingers. So we should know what we are doing, what we are upgrading. We should know. For that we require design documents, we require the drawings. So this has to be a very cautious approach, and this is the biggest challenge today. Making a new product is coming out. You see, as I said, F-16, 3 blocks of it have been stacked up one over the other. You see LCA, not even a single aircraft is wasted. We are flying all. Like as Brigadier Vijay said, yes, more Indonesian component should come in, so that we gain the reliability over a period of time. We build up that platform and slowly change over to the Indonesian product. Playing in the minds of people is production rate versus availability of aircraft. We have disinvested or sort of diversified the whole aircraft into various private agencies. Dynamatics is making the fuselage, L&T is making the wings. You see the production from 3 to 4 aircraft in a year. When I was there as the principal director there in ADA, today they are making a nearly 17 to 18 aircraft, and which is going to be ramped up to 24 aircraft, just because they gave the jobs to others and they are doing the final assembly. Similarly, like as somebody pointed, I think Mr. Pradeep or Brigadier Vijay told, that somebody should take the lead, and that lead should be taken, and that lead integrator should be a qualified guy, and the persons who are supporting should be having a core expertise which has to be assured. Now this has to be done by MOD. Now MOD has to decide. Now if you go for bidding, RFP floating, this will not happen, because again L1 will come, somebody will come who doesn't have the corporate, and then one man will spoil the whole show. So we need to have a committee which can form and decide, like it happens in Russia. You go to Russia, you get that there the Rosenbraun or somebody will decide, okay, India has come to us for a fighter aircraft. Who will make it? Who will make the engine? Who will make the airframe? They decide. Our system doesn't permit that. I understand, but there can be some sort of equivalent to a CCS or something like that. Can sit down and decide, okay, this is the combination which will make AEWC. Okay, today GMR has been given the task. Okay, Airworks will be given the task for something else. For C295 MRO can be given to Airworks. Let us decide and delegate and work, because within the country, any decision we only have to take. You cannot ask OEM to take. Today, what is happening is you are telling OEM, you decide what is to be done, and they are telling you, come, let everything come. Today, C-17 goes to US for painting. And we are painting the Airbus 330, which is the same size. Why can't we do it here? I'm talking about very low technology stuff, but a big technology once we can do it if you have a consortium of branded players who can join hands and sit in 2-3 places. And don't make MROs everywhere in the country. Select 3-4 good airframe MROs to generate competition, system MROs, and also engine MROs, and set it up and make them work together in a consortium under a MOD umbrella. This is what I have to just figure out.
So you have come out with some very excellent points, and in fact, I would say very futuristic, because you've sort of given us a little bit of a window, a little bit of peek into the future. And I think some very good things are happening already from what you have said. And so that to that extent, I feel that in our group, where we have large number of very good experts, I have a feeling that we are now able to collectively create some sort of a collective thinking where, like, there's a word called mastermind. I think that is what we need to create too, because the situations are complex. There are a lot of people who want to do good for moving forward. And if we can all collectively think, maybe the decision makers will be able to get some ideas from what we are saying, and good decision makers are always looking for that. So I'm glad that you come out with such a very large canvas of your experience and what you are doing and what are the possibilities and what is already actually happening, which is very heartening to hear. And the aspect of synergy, like what you brought in, I think that's amazing. And if that can come about, it'll really make a lot of difference, I think, overall, towards the Make in India effort. So now, thank you very much for all the initial thoughts. But the next question which I'm going to put is a little question or a query, you can say. You are all equally qualified. You see, I'll hark back to my own experience that when I was a youngster, there was a challenge that we had the Vijanta tank, and in that the engine was problematic. So they said that why don't we try fitting a T-72 engine in it? And initial thoughts were that how can we, I was in the Military College of Electronics and Mechanical Engineering, which eventually I retired as a commandant from, but that time I was a youngster as a captain. So initially the thought was, how can we, we are teaching here, how can we possibly be tasked? But, that time the seniors over there, they asked us to do that. And lo and behold, when we started, we surprised ourselves. We surprised ourselves to the extent that when they said, okay, go and test this tank, we were hoping that it will run about, 5-10 kilometers and come back. It did 450 kilometers. And after that, it was taken for trial and it did thousands of kilometers. What I say is that once you move out towards this direction, a lot can be achieved. That is one. And the second issue is the real question which I am putting here is that the person who integrates, I feel, is the king. I believe that in any make in country, make in India, like in Make in India, we want Indian integrators. And we are very good at that. Like if you look at it, our great success, we are world leaders in IT. An element of that is there in that. So, but there are a counter view thought is there that, unless it is 100% indigenization or very large number of indigenization, then, we are not really calling it as an indigenous product. So I beg to differ. I say that if you have integrated it, no matter what is the quantity of indigenization, it is a indigenous product. And we should aim for that. If you do not have core technology in certain areas, by all means, go for others. I'll give you 2 examples to illustrate what I'm saying. See, when the Second World War broke out, and we had the situation where the United States of America joined the conflict, they suddenly had to ramp up production of tanks. And the Sherman tank, which was eventually won the battle for them, it had 4 different engines in which were fitted into it. Similarly, if you look at the M1 Abrams today, it's got a German gun. So, there is no harm in going in for technology, like where now the news has come of the latest tank which we are putting together. I am very, very enthused with the fact that we are integrating a tank and bringing it about. And there is a participation between the DRDO and our civilian top-notch companies. And we are able to, if we are able to put together a tank, it's excellent news for us because it will be an Indian tank. No matter even if the engine or the gearbox or the turret is coming from somewhere, it doesn't matter. because you can always, once you've integrated, you can change. But I wanted to just, of our esteemed panelists, have a view, because I've seen in our group also counter views coming, and some people say, no, if it's not indigenized, really it's not our tank. I feel no, it is our tank if we have integrated it. Your views on that? To start with, Mr. Pradeep Gupta, please.
Thank you, Jan Saab. Very well stated by you and my other co-panelists. There I can see some other participants too. We'll request them to give their views too. Regarding this comprehensive, because in my the think tank, I have used the word comprehensive system design. So we should, that is what the integration is. That say now, I'll just go to the basics that we as a group decide to make a new tank, or say light tank, what is being talked about, the product which initiated this dialogue, today's panel discussion. Now, what are the components? What should this system, the sizes of it? What are the stability features? Those are the things which you sit down on the drawing board and then start coming up. Everybody knows what are the components largely in the tank. Now, those major mechanical or salient components, you have placed it on the frame. Next comes what are the new features, keeping in mind the future role of the tank, the evolving technologies. There one challenge comes, how to visualize that, how to use the AI, because every second day the new age technology is changing. I am seeing the algorithm, what we thought 2 years ago, we were working, we have reached the state by the time some better engineering of the algorithm has been done. So then we think that by the time I'm making a product and it is launched in the market, something new will come. So every time, and how will you integrate those features in the tank? That is one challenge. Another is that when you put all these components on that platform, what are the final products? So here comes the issue of what I'm just placing before you all, the idea what the Bell helicopters have done, utilizing the virtual reality tools. So what they did some about 5-6 years ago, just before COVID, they had started, and the design team was given task to design a new helicopter. And right from the concept, because Commodore Murali will know it very well, that the day you start conceptualizing a new helicopter and the day when you start the bulk production, it is almost 6 to 7 years period. So that time the design team was not given. They were told to telescope everything to 1.5 to 2 years, or maximum 2.5 years. So what they do, and their approach was very good, which we Indians are missing out. I'm also part of it. That they sat down and they started, because in 2017-18, VR tools and AI was not that mature. But then they started using it, and they telescoped the design time to almost 1 year or 1 year, some months. So they could freeze the design without actually making the helicopter. The helicopter was flown, everything was done virtually. Simulated models were used, and say if you are loading some extra load on that helicopter, then what will happen to the blade? What will happen to the engine and the body? The pressure analysis was done, and based on that, they did a lot of combination, and they could arrive at certain data without actually manufacturing the component. So that exercise was reduced to large extent, and then they started, after freezing the designs, then they started manufacturing. Maybe in 1 or 2 iterations they could have done it, but then the COVID happened. After that, I did not keep track of that project. But then I am having the hunch that they have designed it, and soon they will be coming up. So this is where I had been telling for the FICV in the Def Expo also, that why don't you use this technology I told them in early 2020 that Def Expo, that this virtual reality tool should be, but then everybody is knowing everything. They think that yes, the approach is fine. So utilizing this virtual reality tool to hone up the system integration or the comprehensive system design, then say I am the designer, I know whether I should have a Rolls-Royce engine or GE engine or a Safran engine. So whichever is suitable, I will take, and I will have the flexibility to change it tomorrow also to some other thing. So there the focus of indigenization is very good. The MSME is supported, but then the focus should also be on comprehensive system design. That is the what General Saab has very rightly pertinently told, that system integration. So our concept of having the idea how the tank works, how the aircraft works, how the other things work is very important. Since Air Commodore Murali raised the, I think you are in Hyderabad, Secunderabad area, and few years ago, Lockheed Martin CEO of India, he was talking to me because I was moving with the DPSU's OFB team and the private industry team, meeting MSMEs in say engineering centers of the country. Like in Bangalore, I held virtual conference. In Belgavi, I went there because that is known as hydraulics capital of India and foundry capital. So everybody, we all sat on these stages. Like Lockheed Martin was also there. Everybody was there with me, and we were interacting with the MSMEs. So he mentioned that 15 years ago or more than that, there were about 10-15 industries of aircraft components, small ones in Secunderabad, and over 15 years period in 2018 and 19, it had grown to 100 plus. And now it must have crossed 120, 130. So Hyderabad, Secunderabad region is fast evolving into aviation hub. Like the South American, Latin America, they have done in Argentina and Brazil. I'd been to Embraer and other places there, and they also are not very advanced or developed country, but then they have done very good work in aviation. That's why they have launched this Embraer aircraft, which is competing in its class world over. So now something of that kind, we must have at least one product which is going to have its say. This was the motivation when I discussed this issue of tank with Dr. Sivithanu Pillai, that sir, we have succeeded in BrahMos. BrahMos missile is one of its class in world, and it is the best missile in its supersonic cruise missile. Then he told, yes, let us do something. So then I started cobbling up this think tank way back in 2016-17, and then finally in 2021 I could launch. Though very slowly we are progressing, and in between this MRO chapter opened, and I also became part of this. So we are making efforts in right direction, though lot of inputs have to come, industries have to come forward, because if industries don't come with their problem, we'll never be able to resolve it. Industries have faced are day in and day out facing problem. I have approached the industry association also, that you tell your members to tell their problem, technical problems basically. Regarding the getting orders, etc., is one part, we are not touching on that. But technical problems, at least they should tell, because they keep on struggling and there is nobody to do the handholding of them in this regard. So regarding system integration, we have tools, etc., available. We have to get domain experts and integrate, like metallurgic experts also, like aviation experts also, all put together. And you don't need to actually physically manufacture those components, but make it in the lab and on a computer simulated screen, and do the trials in whatever manner you want to do, and based on the QR, and then the users, that is the armed forces, will have better experience, because they can virtually see how the FICV or how that fighter aircraft is functioning, or that particular part is functioning, because the user has to work very closely with the system integrator or the comprehensive systems designer team. Let us start from that, and then, though all of us may not be that very big experts, but then we can motivate people to, and we have exposure in these very fields. Youngsters coming out of very good technical institutes in this country, they are feeder stock to the world's major defense manufacturers like Raytheon, Lockheed, Boeing. Their backbone is to Indian engineers. But in India, I think that we should request them to pool their knowledge virtually, at least. Not to come, but then they can share their insights into that field with us to design something. So that's my idea on this. Yeah, rightly, we are going on a right track. I'm very happy to note that the system integration of comprehensive system designer, वो राजा होता है उस system का. So that is what we should target immediately, and rest will all ecosystem will happen on its own. So that's what I just wanted to share.
Thank you very much. In fact, before I come to Brigadier Vijay, I think we will turn it around this time, because I see that Air Commodore Murali has raised his hand. So please go ahead, you give your views, then we'll request Brigadier Vijay.
Yeah, I think my points, Brigadier Vijay will be much more talking about it better. So I thought it's better for me to talk before him. What Mr. Pradeep said, yes, that is the way. But the thing is that, we need to have a capability in the country to come up with build-to-print drawings and build-to-specs drawings. When you do machining with virtual designing, virtual tools, this is a very important aspect. Otherwise, you will have a lot of issues on interchangeability of parts, pipelines, all these things. So machining capability is totally dependent on mass manufacturing. Machining capability in the country is totally dependent on build-to-print drawings, build-to-specs drawings, which we have been insisting in Air Force, at least for the aircraft. And for the ground systems, it is easily possible. We have Infosys now recently has come out with taking veterans in for them, because they also have the capability to make this. Now the question is, sharing this data with them is the issue. So all the drawings which have been made by the designers, how will you share with a private company? It will go out of the country. I think we should come out of this halo of security of, because outside world is much more ahead. They don't require our technology. We are growing. When you are growing, you should not worry about something going out, except for, of course, places like satellite launch, like ISRO and all. But here we need to be, there is a way to do it. Encryption is possible, and they should be told to come in for insourcing. They can come in, work inside. You have to just give them a place with a air-conditioned comfort for the computers to work and all those things, and make them come inside and work, and you control their computers. There's no issue. So making build-to-print and build-to-specs drawings is the necessity today if you want to go for mass. And when you go for mass manufacture, this will also give you qualitative output. Because today, if you want to indigenize, if you want to make in India, you require numbers for the cost-benefit analysis. Because if you don't sell abroad, just armed forces requirement alone will not meet. Maybe it will meet for the ground systems for army, because you are a bigger army and we have almost 2.5 front scenario, so that we have numbers available. But in aircraft side, you don't have that kind of numbers. So we had to sell outside abroad if you want to really cash in on sort of a cost-effective way of doing it. Now, 2 points which come out is, as Mr. Pradeep also said, performance in the fear factor of the MSMEs. Will we be able to perform? What all services will demand? Will they check the internet and tell everything has to be met as per international standards, which we can't do it? This fear factor in the MSMEs is actually killing the whole thing. Like today, when I'm making the consortium, I want all the MSMEs to flow in. Like I said, I told GMR, you don't invest on avionics. There is firms like Russell Texas in Bangalore who are all experts in, HECO has come in country for mechanical aggregates. Avionics, you have Russell Texas. They're all with OEMs. They're having collaboration. Use them. Tell them to come as a partner. And lead integrator, as both of you have pointed out, the lead integrator is the god of the whole design. So lead integrator should take charge of it and do all this integration part of it. So it is actually making asset light, asset right assets. That is, when you delegate a consortium, you have asset light, asset right. Asset right is major investments, like you require a runway for aircraft land or a testing area, arena as you made, ATs as you made. So you require a bigger ship like Tata's or GMR or something like that. So let them take the asset right. Asset light should be given to the MSMEs and GOCO firms where they can contribute, and they will qualitatively contribute much better when you are given delegating the numbers to them. That is what I have seen, because they focus on making that particular, if it's a nut and bolt given to them, they will concentrate on the nut and bolt and they will in larger numbers in better quality. So I think that is the way it should be. The other two aspects which are going to be troubling us is the testing facilities. We are very poor in our testing facilities in the country, especially the environmental testing. Though our ground terrain is the vast, diversified way of having the climatical conditions we have, no other country has got in terms of height as well as the terrain. I think the simulated testing we are very poor. So we need to have simulated testing before we do the field trials. All the field trials get delayed because of our field testing. Why LCA didn't come out for such a long time is because there was no testing philosophy itself. We had a lot of issues in testing. Then qualification. What qualification you want the standards to be set for the product? We don't have a qualification standards within the country, where you have Ghosh standards for the Russian, you have the US Navy naval spec standards, army spec standards are there. But what standards we have? Why don't we push the CMLAC to make Indian standards suiting our terrain first? Otherwise, we'll have to depend on these foreign standards, which doesn't suit our country. At least I can tell you from the aviation point of view, we have always modified various consumables, including ceiling rings, everything when the aircraft has been imported, because it was not suiting our, we have a very high diurnal variation of temperature, which is not there in other foreign countries. So we had a lot of issues on the seals, leakages have started coming in. First few years was a hell of an operation for us, operational struggle for us. So we need to have a qualification standards within us. Then usage proving and end life. Now this is something which every services said, I want the end life, I want the total. We should not insist. Let the aircraft like LCA, we started with 10 years life. The aircraft has got life of nearly 30 to 40 years. But we cannot predict that life now. After 10 years, the first overall, the first 3 lead aircraft, how it behaves, what are the structural defects coming, how to repair it, that will give you the next 10 years. So services also should not be too demanding. They should be going in steps and handhold this consortium which is being formed for each domain. Like Army can make 3-4 consortiums for various products. Air Force can make 3-4 consortiums for their products, for transport aircraft, fighter aircraft, and helicopters. We can have 3 different consortiums. Helicopters, HAL has mastered. Let HAL only do the consortium heading. For Airbus and Boeing fleet, GMR is the master. So let GMR do the Airbus and Boeing consortium. Like this, you can select people who have the core expertise and they have the will to work. They have the asset-light, asset-right combinations available within their consortium. Those people should be selected is what I felt. And lastly, tasking. Now, this is one thing in the numbers when you play the numbers. Now, how do you task? You may task one particular consortium for limited numbers, another consortium with the bigger numbers. So now how do you, because we are selling within the country, we are not selling abroad as of today. So till that matures, there has to be some hand-holding in terms of import policy from the government, some sort of relaxation on whatever somebody is trying to make within the country with his heart out and investing himself, give him the privileges of having some policy wherein he is helped to make till the numbers come up to a recent amount. So this is a very big call which the government has to take. That's all.
So that's excellent. That's a lot of very, very good points you have given. As you're aware that this panel discussion of ours is being listened to, viewed in by our members. So one of our members, Commander Sonal Saxena, has got a question for Brigadier Murali and a suggestion and some inputs he wants to give. So I'll request him to just ask his or give a suggestion or ask a question. Go ahead.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for the opportunity. So, way too junior with some experience in the naval aviation. I was looking after turboprops of the Navy. And as you said, sir, regarding the companies to be involved and to be given classified information, I think we can have very strong non-disclosure agreements, which the companies honor very religiously nowadays. And especially all the aviation related companies, they have that code that they honor this kind of non-disclosure agreements. And we can include the national security clause into it, that any disclosure or any leak will invite national security repercussions. The first is that way, sir. Secondly, sir, this Russian aircraft, which is now on the phase out, I'll not name the aircraft, but then we did a lot of system integration, as you said, on that. It was from Bell, ECIL, with indigenized equipment, ESM, which was developed indigenously, that was installed. Then Western inertial nav system was integrated into this aircraft, all for trials to the extent that, and to a large extent, they were successful. So it was a mix of, as Murali sir, you brought out, that system integration is a very much doable thing. And we have been doing it by our furnished equipment that we have been installing in all the new aircraft that are coming in with our expertise only, without OEMs doing anything. So with some of the PSUs or the government organizations, as well as the private industry, I think system integration, we can very easily do it, sir.
You nailed it, actually. In fact, if you look at it, we have the RIF system, Russia, Israel, France. RIF system in most of our aircraft. We have from other countries coming in. Now, the problem is when you are dealing with Western countries, when you come to the Western countries, they have this something called PIA, that is a proprietary intellectual act. They will take you to the court. You cannot do without them. So that is what I am trying to tell from the GMR point of view. We have a very good relation with Airbus and Boeing. We have global supply chain contracts. We can always, when you buy a Boeing C-17 or you buy C-130, now Lockheed Martin wants to set up a regional hub in the Asian market. We are bidding maximum for that. In fact, we said we will love to test this. Money is not an issue. We will invest and we will set up in Hyderabad the aerospace park. We have given a willingness to them. It is up to them now to come and test us, check us. Qualitatively, they are good. We are able to do all that more modifications, upgrades, and indigenization. So all these things checks will go on. Now that is purely left to the OEM. But when it comes to services and the government doing it, there is no drive on this front. I think when the initial procurement takes place itself, I think we need to hack this issue then and there, wherein MROs are the biggest input for a design table. For a design desk, MROs give the maximum input. Today, you come here in GMR, I can tell you Airbus at what all stages the structural defects are taken place. We have captured it in the computer. Tomorrow, if there is a transport aircraft to be manufactured in India, this information on the wings, how it behaved at the fuselage over a period of time in terms of corrosion and structural fatigue and all those things, will be such a big input for the designer. He can just straight away integrate it, extrapolate and integrate it into the aircraft which is being made for the country. So MRO inputs should never be, like for example, Kapoor has got so much of vast knowledge on the engine MRO. I think that sort of a synergy between MRO and the designers is not taking place in the country. This is why we are still dependent on upgrades and modifications with abroad. As you said, we are trying to now come out of it and make our own indigenous products. But the problem is breakdown spares and source coding when it comes to aggregates. And when it comes to structures, we don't have the drawings with us. So, but all these things can be done. If there is will and there is a sort of a hand-holding between branded players and make a consortium, which is a big call which government has to take, we can do it.
Excellent. I think very nice points again. There's a commonality, I think, in experiences, even though we are separated by age, but similar feelings experiences we have seen. Maybe now you are seeing it much more detailed. But now coming back to the initial question, and I'm coming to Vijay now, the question we said was that integrator is king. So if we can integrate, we should just carry on doing it and not worry about the amount of indigenization. We should make our own systems. And over a period of time, we can indigenize elements of that or change the components or the subsystems or the MUAs, according to our requirement or according to the new options which open. So this was the general thrust of the question and so of the discussion around which we wanted your views, Brigadier Vijay.
Yes. So we must understand how the government of India is looking at Make in India. So as far as the government of India is concerned, it is the amount of work which you get done in India. Whether you fully design the equipment, do the R&D, design an equipment, make and manufacture in India, that is also Make in India. You act as a system integrator where you take a number of components, say 80% abroad, 20% indigenous. A large part of that project qualifies as Make in India. And those who are manufacturing just small parts for a defense industry, those also qualify as Make in India. So Make in India covers the whole range. Now, the aim of this whole Make in India, when the government of India came up with this push, the thrust, Atmanirbharta, Make in India, and giving a lot of incentives and all, they wanted to make India a manufacturing hub, like China, say. Becoming an R&D hub comes much later. So they are also looking at it. They understand the thing and they want to give a major thrust to all the MSMEs who are involved in this defense industry, who can help in this defense industry. And they've announced a number of schemes. They've announced a lot of collateral loans to MSMEs with deferred interest payouts. And in the sectors that is covered under Make in India, every aspect of industry in India is covered, from the automobile to the automobile spare parts, to the defense, to the IT, to the the construction industry, even tourism, agriculture, everything is covered. And a significant part of this is the defense portion of Make in India. So the DPP focuses on the processes which give a boost to the Make in India. And the DPP is a well-designed document, but which you have the freedom to still work on it. And you have the DAP 2020 clearly defines, you have two types of schemes: the Government of India funded schemes, where the Government of India is willing to fund up to a maximum of 250 crore into these projects, and a pure industry funded scheme. And they're allowing even up to 74% FDI. So that is pretty significant in these Make in India projects. And as I said, they will define Make in India project, even if it's an integrator, even if it is a separate designer. And a very interesting, in fact, the only workable solution is what Air Commodore Bala Murali brought up, is the consortium approach. So the government has announced, two large corridors purely for defense industrialization. One is in UP and the other is in Tamil Nadu. And, a point was brought out, we do not have proper testing facilities. We do not have, design facilities using various types of software, AI, VR, etc. We don't have the defense testing infrastructure. The government has already announced a 400 crore support for just setting up defense testing infrastructure. And they are looking at investment opportunities in the defense industry, Make in India, into its supply chain, into modernization, that is upgrading your systems also. It has covered infrastructure development, which is your testing labs, your labs which can get your drawings out, your designs, drawings out. So they're looking at it as prototype development, fresh design, everything. And 74% FDI, a lot of foreign industry has understood the thrust, has understood the great opportunity. You have so many companies which have come in. You have Airbus, you have Boeing, you have Raytheon, you have IAI, you have Rafael, Dassault. A lot of big international industries are coming in. The government has also announced, this innovation in defense excellence, and there are a lot of trust and financial support in that, where they're helping startups who want to get into this field. They're helping R&D startups. They've got a tie-up with all the IITs. In fact, I had attended recently a green energy seminar in IIT Madras last month, and they've got a full a separate setup apart from IIT, where they incubate startups and they encourage even defense startups into this technology. And they've announced a lot of projects, in batteries, especially for submarines, simulators, a lot of investment on simulators, on drones, radars, you name an equipment, they've done that. So we should, look at a three-pronged thing. Look at what all schemes are there under Atmanirbharta. Look at what all schemes are there under Make in India. What all are the production-linked incentives? What are all the financial schemes available? And create some sort of as Commodore Balamurali brought out, create a consortium. Somebody on top who is your integrator, who says, this is what I want in a particular system. Then we float out the subsets, all of which will qualify under Make in India, and we can go about it. And these industrial corridors, the government in its plan has said that it will have everything ranging from the best of communication system, the best of logistic support system, power support systems. It will be like, I missed the message just now. Somebody said like Russia has industrial townships. It is just like that. In the renewable energy sector, if you go to our SEZs, you find such huge SEZs have come up, especially along the ports, Chennai and all, where everything can be done. And the government is pushing for these. So the opportunity is there. Now it's how we all think and use and find ways to get it done. Yeah, that's what I was trying to bring up.
Excellent, excellent. I think very nicely summed up, especially, anybody listening would see how opportunities are opening and, the manner in which we can move forward. So there are very nice venues opening up, if I may say, for Make in India to progress and with the synergy, consortium approach, enabling policies, everything seems to be falling into place. So with this first round being completed, now I'm going to club two things together. And along with that, I'll request the panelists also to wind up with their sort of closing remarks at the end of answering this two query, sort of a query I have, a suggestion I have for you to talk about. So what I say is that with with this knowledge of having a lifetime and wanting to now work towards improving things, so it's sometimes in your you have insights, I'm sure all of us have, that firstly, what are the things which are the sort of roadblocks or friction points which are coming in the way of things maybe moving, though everybody in each one of the areas wants to move forward, but because of some friction, sometimes things don't work. So what are those? If you could just look at it, I would say from a positive point of view as identifying them and also helping in a helpful manner if you can suggest how to overcome them. And that's one part of the core query. The other part is that in your wisdom, in your insight, in your experience, do you feel there are some low-hanging fruits, the cliched low-hanging fruits which now we should put our resources on so that maybe success produces success and and that a snowball of success starts rolling across the country, something like that. And we do, we get very large results from our Make in India efforts. So question on that, and along with this, once you have mentioned whatever you want to say, you say that on that. Also, please give your closing thoughts before then after that we can end this panel discussion. So I request once again Mr. Pradeep Gupta to give his views.
Thank you, Janat Saab, regarding the very enlightening discussion has taken place today in the panel, and I feel that it has thrown more questions and certainly food for thought for several of us, and a roadmap for future panel discussions too. And we have to build on this. Like Commander Sonal just now mentioned about the Navy. My experience with Navy says that Navy was destined to integrate things because the platform for Russians and the radar and other communication equipment were all from Western nations. So they had to integrate. They had set up an organization known as VESI long ago, and VESI had been doing a lot of work.
I think he has accidentally left the meeting. Let's wait for a minute. If he rejoins, then we can just give us a minute. In the meantime, General Kapoor, welcome.
Good evening, everybody. Good evening, sir.
Good evening. Welcome to the discussion. Give your views. What we had talked about was integrator being king, and now we are looking at what are the ways in which are the roadblocks we feel, and what are the ways we feel low-hanging fruits which can take on. So this is what is being, second part is being discussed now. So now what's happened is that we are not getting him back. So I will now request that Brigadier Vijay takes on the same thing which I mentioned, that what are the friction points, or let's say what are the roadblocks you perceive, and how is it the low-hanging fruits which can make us get success and reinforce success. Over to Brigadier Vijay.
So as far as defense equipment is concerned, although the DPP has tried to address most of the friction points, but there are certain things which slow down the whole process, and the government has given you broad freedom on those. So we've already seen how the AHSP ruling came in. So one of the key areas, a low-hanging fruit, is there's a lot of funds earmarked for setting up testing laboratories, quality testing laboratories, material testing laboratories, trial infrastructure under the Make in India scheme. So and without these three, you can do no make in India. If you do not have good quality labs, material labs, testing labs, trial labs, and your design development labs where you do your three-dimensional designs, etc. And this also qualifies under the Make in India scheme. So this is one low-hanging fruit. Next is to identify every element that we import and see, is that technology available in India? Almost all technologies are available in India. After all, we have done so much in the space field. Identify MSMEs and give them the tasks. So who does all this? So the first challenge is we have to create large integrators. An integrator has to be a large enough company, something on the lines of, say, L&T, Kalyani, that size integrators, who pick up a major system and say, we will integrate this system. Then they adopt a consortium approach under them and say, okay, this industry will develop this, this will develop this. In these industrial corridors, we will develop the labs coming up, the testing labs, material labs, build the design labs, the software development labs. All these will qualify under Make in India. Another area where there is tremendous amount of low-hanging fruits is with DRDO. We tend to have a low opinion of DRDO, but there are a number of projects with DRDO where Make in India is possible. And they've got two schemes available with them. Group 1 schemes are a lot of TOT they have, which are purely for defense use. And in Group 2, they have got a lot of TOTs which have dual use. And they have listed out their TOTs with which they are ready to have a partnership with MSMEs who can get into it. So there's a lot of scope here. But the key issue is large companies have to come in to act as system integrators, get into the consortium of industry approach, and then set up and exploit all these defense industrial corridors which the government wants to set up.
Thank you very much. I think, as always, you have this, you see things which maybe some of us don't because of your scholarly look at these aspects. And I think what you're saying is absolutely on the dot. Maybe these are the ways we can start moving forward if we want to move quickly. Now I'll request Brigadier Murali to give his views. As I said, also you can suggest your closing remarks also in this. And essentially, what are the friction points or roadblocks, and what are the possible? You have mentioned like that. What are the low-hanging fruits which we can, really move towards? Over to you.
Yeah. So I would like to restrict now in this particular forum that to aviation part. In the low-hanging fruits, when you're looking at it, is sustenance engineering. Basically, today, if you want to get into deep technology absorption, we had to be good at sustenance engineering. That is upgrades, modifications, and life extensions. Because these three domains give you a large exposure on the system design per se, as well as the metallurgical aspects of it. So once this is done, then we can move. While this is being done, the low-hanging fruits are being attacked. We need to have a concurrent progression towards the deep technology absorption. We had to nail down when it comes to ground-based systems as well as airborne systems. We had to have what are the deep technologies which are required to be available. We are very clear on the airborne platforms what all is required. But in both the cases, what I feel my interaction with DRDO and HAL is where, as I said earlier, the two basic things which are lacking is the qualification standards and the testing, which we need to look at testing related to the qualification standards. So where, especially environmental testings. So where we need to have a sort of a committee or some sort of a driver in MOD to look into this. I will call it as a mentoring cell for, as Mr. Pradeep said, people take a lot of time in clearing the files because of lack of knowledge and lack of interaction, or probably the right people has not been put in the right place to address that particular file. I think there needs to be a mentoring cell. This mentoring cell can be given to retired senior officers, air rank officers who can be told, who has got the will to work, can be always called forward and told to come and sit in the mentoring cell, and all the technologies which are being channelized in Army, Navy, and Air Force can be addressed by this mentoring cell and how to go about it. Like today, what we are discussing online, similar mentoring cell can be formed in place. At least for 10 years, continuity, one person can be given. So basically, on the deep technology absorption, once we identify, we have to have a long-term plan. We need to have a co-develop, co-design agency from a friendly nation. We know which are the nations which are likely to be on a friendly note. I think this is a call which is very difficult, but still it can be hacked once we know, identify that technology which we need to absorb. So there should be a co-develop, a co-design agency rather than JV or MOU, wherein this deep technology can be absorbed quite quickly into our planned project. These labs on a commercial platform, wherein all these consortium people should be given facility to use those labs, DRDO labs, for doing testing. So I think we should have commercialized the DRDO lab. That is one way of looking at immediate hacking of the testing requirements. As far as the other aspect, which I problem area which I put up is the qualification standards. This I have been telling right because I am also I have worked in RCMA. I have been telling from the day one, for engines and airframe, we need to have separate qualification standards for ground-based and airborne systems, which can be easily made and dovetailed. Seeing the amount of inductions we had from Western and Russian fleet coming into India and the amount of problems we had, we can easily extrapolate one of these standards to Indian standards. Once the Indian standards are finalized, our indigenized product will be global. Because if an aircraft or a ground-based system can work in Indian terrain, it can work anywhere in the world. I am fully aware about it as far as the aircraft is concerned, because we have the highest altitude start, we have the highest low flying terrains, and as far as the army vehicles are concerned, naval vehicles, we have the best of the terrains, and best of the terrains available to do field trials and qualify. So this is what I would like to tell in this particular. I restrict myself to this much. Probably next forum.
So I know that Mr. Pradeep Gupta is back through a different connection, but Mr. Gupta, just hold for a minute. We have got two very eminent people who have joined us and who also are going to give us, my colleagues who have got a lot of regard for. So I think just to once again, though I mentioned, till now what we have discussed is two aspects. That is, first we looked at the factor that we felt that anybody who integrates, that person is the king. So if in India we integrate and we don't worry about the indigenous content right from the beginning. I gave the example that Sherman tanks had 4 different engines and the M1 Abraham still has a German gun. So we should, like the way we are going ahead with Zorawar, so that is absolutely a fantastic way, I feel. So that was one aspect. The second aspect, just as mentioned, was that what are the roadblocks or maybe friction points and what are the low-hanging fruits. So if you can just club both of these together and share your wisdom with us, General Kapoor.
I'm Lieutenant General Anill Kapoor. I retired as the DG EME in December 2020. And before that, I was also the DG Information Systems. I have specialized in radars and guided missiles. And other than that, I've served, with special reference to this forum, I've served in DRDO in Project Prithvi. In fact, I've looked at IGMDP very closely from 1989 to 1993 and served with Dr. Kalam, who was then the director DRDL, and of course Dr. VK Saraswat, who's now in the Niti Aayog. He was the project director Prithvi. I've had a good look into Agni. I've had a good look into Akash, Trishul and Nag. So I've had a lot of time there. So I'm quite cognizant of DRDO and the facilities that they have. So that is a little bit about me to start. Recently, I joined MIT after my retirement, and we'd started a program on MTech in Defense Technology and MIT Institute of Defense Technology. And then we started a PhD program and an integrated BTech MTech program. And then I left MIT and now I've joined IIT. I'm a board member on the Technology Innovation Hub. And I'm also doing a professor of practice. I conduct workshops on design thinking, on industrial automation and industrial autonomy. Those are some subjects that I take in IIT. And recently, of course, I've also added cyber. I do read and research on cyber. And so that is a bit about me. And technology strategy and technology management is something that has always been a very interesting subject for me, and I've been writing on that, and I've done my thesis both MPhil during my high command and during my NDC on technology management and technology strategies. So that is a brief introduction about me. I've been listening to some very illustrious views, and I think I endorse all of them. All this is required, but I think perhaps where we need to focus more, to my mind, is looking at the big picture, right? There's a lot of foot slogging happening at the lower level, but like I always say, direction is more important than speed. We have got into speed, but we need velocity. And in velocity, it has to be direction first. And we may say Atmanirbhar Bharat, Make in India, Startup India, Digital India, all that is very good. But I feel like we have a budget day. In fact, I've been writing about it that we need to have a National Technology Day. Let there be a ministry which looks at technology as technology. I mean, when I was the DG Information Systems, I can tell you we were closing BMS, and the big pressure on me was what after this. And I just by default happened to read a little item that RDSO along with Space Application Center is doing a project on, unmanned level crossings using satellite communication and Navik. And I immediately went to RDSO and I went to Space Application and Center, and we actually did a Blue Force tracking using our own Navik within a month on tanks. So what I'm trying to say is that there is so much of technology in our country, and each to its own. I mean, ISRO is doing their own, Railway is doing their own, MeitY is doing their own. And I can tell you, I'm with IIT now, and I find we have a technology innovation hub, which is given by DST. We have MeitY after us to do something, some center of excellence with them. Headquarter IDS wants to do some center of excellence. So with the result, there's a huge amount of proliferation, huge amount of funding. And my biggest fear is that it shouldn't happen that the human and the financial capital is doing the same thing, but at different locations without knowing each other are doing the same thing. So I feel that firstly, at the national level, we need to have a DST has to become a ministry of technology. And we have to look at that big picture, and where that becomes a single window for all technologies that we look at. So that is a big technology window. And I mentioned as a preamble, 11th May happens to be a National Technology Day. And I always say, let there be like a budget. Let's have the Minister of Technology talking about technology in India. What is the technology proliferation going to happen? What are the big tickets and low-hanging fruits like we talked of in the coming financial year or in the next 5 years, like we do our budgeting? And what is the budgeting for it? What is the infrastructure for it? See, today, I think there is huge amount of technology happening in India, huge. But do we know? I mean, here in this forum, we are talking so many things, but there's a huge departure. You know, today DRDO allows you to use all their environmental lab. It is opened. It is already open to industry. You can pay and use it. You're right. Sometime back, they were quite closed about it, but I was part of a study team on technical modernization of armed forces, and we happened to go to DRDO labs, and we found a lot of industry, MSMEs, and there are different rates. I mean, and there are hourly rates, there are rates for a day. So they've come up with a very good financial model to make it lucrative for our own industry to do these environmental tests in all the labs, including EMI, EMC, and other tests, including the missile labs. Everybody's opening up. Now, I'm aware that in Technology Innovation Hub in IIT Tirupati, we are coming up with huge instrumentation and test stations for space applications. And Siemens India is coming up, and Wipro is coming up in a big way with a huge Industry 4.0 infrastructure, which can be used by anybody. But are we aware? The issue is no. I am also aware, getting aware because I happen to be there. So there is a lot that needs to be done to get first the information right, the information system right, the information mobile, people knowing what we are doing. And I feel that if we have a ministry like that, which is overarching, then a lot of problems will get solved. As an example, anything being done in Blue Force tracking, as an example, it has a huge relevance in the railways. What is true of a railways crossing when you want to identify when a train is coming and you want to create sirens and systems, actually has a huge customization towards our own Blue Force tracking. Similarly, we are aware that after 2611, all the ships, fishing ships have been given a Navik receiver now. It's a method of BFT. So I would, to summarize, say that we need to have programs, technology programs under a ministry. And programs, I mean, like, just as an example, let's say program light battle tank. It's a program. And we have a systems group and we have a project group. The systems group look at all the possible systems that go into it, whether it is powertrains, whether it is, so there's a group which deals with powertrains. This powertrain can be used at so many other places. There's a group which looks at armor protection, which goes into so many places. A system looks at guns, which goes into so many other systems. So we have the systems group and we have a project group in the program. And I'm wanting to replicate the IGMDP example. See, it started in 83. Even to date, it is so relevant because the systems group is creating future technologies and future technology landscapes right from TRL level 1 to 9. I mean, today in institutions, you're funding, DRDO is funding institutions to do TRL 1, 2, 3, and and moving ahead on TRLs using that funding. And then you have a project group, and each project is looking at these technologies, and they are not reinventing the wheel, they're using the wheel. And that's how they are growing. I mean, whatever is true for a solid propulsion system for Nag would be true for Prithvi, would be true for Akash. Only scales are different, sizes are different. So I would say that we need to look at the big picture right. If we have the big picture right, the small picture will start falling in place on its own. We have too much happening at the small picture stage. But at the big picture stage, there is sloganeering. We haven't organized our structure for efficiency. If the structure is organized well, everything will start getting polarized. We have to look at polarization and direction. Speed will come. And I've read this book, and I would recommend all of us should read it, The 100-Year Marathon by Michael Pilsberg. I put it in the group also. How did China do it? In 1949, they've even gone how the citizen will behave, how the media will behave. It's been, of course, I'm sorry, I'm not wanting to propound that as a very good model, but all I'm saying is at least it was crystal clear to polarize and fix the direction of the nation for some kind of effectiveness, which their visionary leaders saw. And today we have a very visionary leadership. I think it is the best that we've had over the last couple of years. And I think if we can put our thoughts and our vision and our mission in the right direction, a lot of propulsion will happen. A lot of propulsion. And what you're saying about integration, what you're saying about testing, it is so relevant. What you're saying that we need to look at upgrades, and it is a full continuum. I think we have to look at womb to tomb. The full life cycle is in our hands, and we can make nations eat out of our hands. I mean, all of us who've been in these services know it. We do so many ideas, innovation. We innovate so much on our own with in-depth knowledge of equipment and in-depth knowledge of our technologies. And I think, and in a very short time with very limited funds, we have those kind of constraints. But despite those constraints, we make it happen. I feel that we need to get our big picture organized before we get into the organization of the small picture, and maybe concurrently. I'm not saying let's look at it sequentially. Let's look at concurrently. And so those are some thoughts, sir, which I thought I'll share.
So thanks, the huge canvas you've covered, and I'm telling you, this new things, this seminal thoughts which you're bringing in, I'm sure, so they're going to start getting traction, and some of them are going to, the big picture is going to start moving, and it'll help. We wish you strength. Before I come back to Mr. Pradeep Gupta, we have the pleasure of having Ranjit Ghosh, whom we go back a long time in service together. So you heard me mention to General Anill about what we talked about. So Ranjit, please take it on from there. And by the way, he has written a fantastic book when he was part of IDSA, which is like it's like a sort of a Bible of many things, like development, procurement, everything is there in that book. It's available as a PDF format. I recommend all of you to have a look at it. So over to General Ghosh, please.
Thank you, sir. Good evening. I'm Major General Ranjit Ghosh. I retired as the ADG in 2020 along with General Kapoor in the same directorate. As far as the exposure is concerned, one has been through induction of two major weapon systems, T-72 and T-90, and associated very closely with these two. So as far as I'm concerned, I'm a tank specialist who has been to the field army induction till overhaul in a base workshop which I commanded. So that part of it is known. Second was with DRDO, there has been a small interaction as in the international cooperation directorate, where I was for about 10, 12 months when we were just opening out to the world. As far as the book is concerned, it was way back in 2015, but one had looked at there were two books. One was on defense R&D, which one looked at the US, China, and then the way ahead for India. And the second was the indigenization, which looked at Make in India, which was very nascent that time, where I reviewed the US and Israel and South Korea and China, and then recommended the way ahead for Make in India at that time. So at that time, there were certain recommendations which one had made, and there were certain gaps in the whole system. I have been out for some time, but just about a month on, I have been following up with what has gone through with the DAP. And what one finds that all the gaps, many gaps, which existed and which one recommended, and other studies have recommended across the post of Vijay and all the operations and other, these all have been taken care very well in this particular Defense Acquisition Procedure 2020. And if you look at it, the Make in India effort, there is a vision in this whole thing. Maybe we are not as good as what China has gone ahead in, or what the US has made, or what the Russian industry is concerned, defense industry. But there is a structure, institutionalized structure, which has been set in this particular DAP. If you go back and Make in India, it started in 2000, I think it was 14 December, and there were about 20-25 sectors. Defense was one of them. So it was a multi-sector effort, which is because there are a lot of technologies which span from one to the other, which General Kapoor was just bringing out. So it started off together. There were problems of ease of doing business, which got coined then. I think we were 159 or something way out. There was certain amount of skilling. So all the campaigns of Make in India, ease of doing business, Startup India, your upskilling India, then on to your COVID, which brought in the Atmanirbhar Bharat Abhiyan, in which you started synchronizing certain other industries like the medical equipment and others, where technologies is also, these all are the latest technology. These are equipment or sectors where the technology is actually making inroads. And we are looking at frontier technologies because now people across the globe are looking at something known as, what we all have been hearing, is disruptive technologies for defense transformation, where we have to look at what are these frontier technologies which are coming in. We have been mentioning about it in the DAP. Let it be AI, let it be high-end materials. These all things have found a note. Simulation trials or modeling during design. Everything has been put. The architecture has been very well laid out in this particular DAP. I have not been able to go through the whole thing. I've just been through about 30, 35, 45 pages up to a make process. But I'm finding the whole structure is very streamlined, very institutionalized. There are all the gaps between the interfaces of user to the industry, right through your DRDO or the public sector, or DPSUs, or the ordnance factories, or the IITs. They all have got linked up well with all the schemes that have been launched. It's a very multi-pronged technology landscape, which they have hit on by going through with the IDEX, or with the technology development thing, or with the inter-service, the innovation and indigenization organizations. So it has been a real well orchestrated, and as Brigadier Vijay brought out, they have opened up all types of collaborations that can take place. Let it be the Make 1, 2, 3. Let it be your technology transfers in terms of foreign collaboration. Let it be JVs, or let it be. But the main thing is the IP. So the ideal is what I think Brigadier Murali brought out was co-development and co-production and even co-design with some great partner who is ready to partner with you. And this is the time where you are putting the things in place, where there is a government initiative on to get all this together as one. And if it is just the start, I feel we are at a very right threshold of making all these things happen. And it is the right time, because if we are looking at 2030 today, and maybe 2020 DPP was looking at 2030, the DAP, that is what is the time frame. The development cycle, the technology cycles are such that they're going to take you 10 to 15 years. Like, as you said, your LCA and others have taken 15, 30, 20 years to finally come up. So if we at least are seeing beyond the horizon as what are the technological requirements, what is the current and future requirements of military modernization in terms of the tri-services, and what is the national resource which is available to us in terms of technology across multi-sectors. The only thing which we lack today, or which a void which is already bottled by General Kapoor, one feels that there's so much happening, there's so many technologies, there has to be some coordinator of each technology, so that each technology gets into a project. It is a project team and it is a technology team, what he's talking of. This again has been taken care of in this DAP. We suddenly have project facilitation teams. We have got project monitoring and mentoring teams. These all things were not there. There was a big gap between startups, MSMEs coming into the defense sector. It was only the primes who were working on it. It was your L&T or it was your Tatas who have made inroads, and they are the big players. But the small players, as we have already heard, MSMEs are going to make all the difference. The MSMEs and startups, you may be the third startup today, beyond US and China, and MSMEs are also growing in big numbers, but these all have to grow further. Like the Germany being always quoted as one of the examples as far as MSME results are concerned. I think we have to tap it that way, and now is the time when the linkages have to come in, and we will be able to deliver. I see a lot of, we may be lagging behind vis-a-vis China. China may have leapfrogged, but maybe it's a matter of 15 years, 47, 50, by the time we should be able to catch up with them. So I'm quite positive, and I'm looking forward to the days ahead. Thank you, sir.
Well, thank you very much, General Ghosh. I think that's a lot of very specific, heartening information you've given regarding the improvement in the processes, procedures which have come. I'm sure they will start showing results soon enough. Now I'll, before we close, I'll come back to Mr. Pradeep Gupta, because your talk got interrupted. So may you please give your views, and then after that we'll close today's panel discussion.
Thank you, General Matharu. I'm very sorry, because suddenly the connection went calm down, and then I had to switch on to some other laptop. So now what I was just talking about the various, how the Navy has integrated various systems on its platform. And I had been to naval dockyards, and I was stunned to see the complex valves of the Russian design they have been able to indigenize from the local industry. So there is a lot of talent, no doubt. And what other speakers have now told, that the scene is quite optimistic, but we must see the result on ground. But my observation for last so many decades have seen that we have been listening to these schemes, etc. But on ground, the results don't occur, and we keep on importing equipment. So what somebody mentioned about the low-hanging fruits. So this comprehensive system design thing can be, though it is little complicated, but within ability of the Indians, because we are very good in software and in mathematics, etc. So this is where we can clinch something. We have to create a platform virtually, try and then do it. In one of the webinars, we have utilized this idea of using quantum computing for better semiconductor design. Rather than making the semiconductor wafer here altogether, which requires billions of dollars to make a refinery, make a foundry of the wafer, you can do this thing in no time by utilizing the quantum computing and designing the band gaps of the semiconductor. And maybe that in that the domain experts will come up with a better semiconductor design. That design can then be taken up to the world's best foundries like TSMC, or we have in US and Intel, and they can be manufactured there. So this design, what is being done here locally, will be completely patented here, because huge amount of calculations are required to be done. That's why the quantum computing is being used for this. This is just an idea, and Dr. Sithanu Pillai was also there, part of that audience, and he appreciated quite a lot, and he asked us to connect to the electronics industry in Bangalore. So we have not been able to progress much in that direction, but nevertheless, we got some queries also from world over. So this is where we can look at a system design perspective and pulling the MSME, because MSME will always look at the business. And we as a ecosystem, I do not know how much business we can give it from the defense. There the L1, and I always say that there is no shortcut to L1. There is no shortcut to QA the criteria. So these are the major issues what will happen, and MSME may come forward, then backtrack also. But nevertheless, we should encourage them. And very heartening to see that a lot of positive news is there about the defense production ecosystem picking up. So that's what I just want to tell. Thank you.
Yeah, over to Brigadier Murali.
One point on the L1. I think L1 requires a separate discussion, actually. Sir, I would like to say on this L1 to Mr. Pradeep, I have been, wherever I could lay hands on, I've been telling, we should create a L1 concept with people who have got the core expertise banked as a totality, like 10 people who are good in supplying something. They should be compartmentalized, and then from that one L1 should be taken. Now what is happening is L1 anybody can come in. Like for example, today if GMR has got AS 9110C standards, it's a world-class standards. I cannot compete with a roadside mechanic. He will come and do a structural work without any AS 9110C standards. Whereas I will do, and that will cost you money. So whether you want quality and then decide on L1, or you don't want quality and then decide on L1, are two aspects which we should decide. So compartmentalize as per the domain expertise, all the industries in the country, and then give those bank of compartmentalized industries for selecting your L1. Rather than giving everybody the L1 concept, people who don't have any idea. Also the L1s get blacklisted and go out in defense, basically because they don't know what they're bidding. I mean, today the scenario has changed a lot, but it is still there, especially in aviation. That only I wanted to add. Probably L1 can have a separate discussion, sir. It's a very big topic.
Yeah, yeah. Anybody want to say something to that? Okay. So now you see, I feel that that's a very good, the sentiment of having another topic. I think I'll only say that I know a little bit about what DMRC and what this amazing stuff which Mr. Sridharan has done. Very sorted out this L1 nicely. So you can just have a look, and it was all done within the rules, and the thing was there is a particular bar you put. So you have to cross that before completing. So anyway, so that, as you said, we'll get into a separate discussion. So with that, I think it's been a long panel discussion. What I see is that in this panel discussion, there is a huge amount of excellent material which has emerged, which can be used by any one of you. And so I will just, towards the end, brief you as to how we will make that happen. But just a few suggestions from my side for the consideration of all of you. See, I think the first thing is that I feel that it's all about leadership. Now, there's an overarching leadership cannot do everything. There's a leadership. So essentially, if you look at our complete system, being a large country, organizations are there, the financial people are there, and the people who write the procedures are there, the industry, both public and private, everything is mixed up. Each one have got the leader, the overall leader is there. I think this word of bridging the gap has to happen. The moment we bridge the gaps, and I firmly believe that all leaders want to do good during their time, whenever they are given the responsibility, they want to take the country forward. So I think if that sort of a catalyst can be used and the leaders can start talking, and maybe forums like ours and all other wonderful work being done by Mr. Pradeep Gupta's forum, this may start happening. So that is one. The second thing is I feel that the tide is rising. The whole sea level, the level of the water itself, the industrial base of the country is rising. And I think this consortium approach, this mixing of things, and the competitiveness, which is forcing people to take hard decisions to improve the efficiencies of the organizations, is a lovely catalyst. And I think the more we compete, the better it is. And I think tremendous futuristic initially portion which you missed, but there was the future is, I think, would see a little bit of future from what was being said on our panel here. So with that, I would come to I'll conclude this program for now, and we look forward to more such panel discussions.